All right, so we're back. Hopefully we have a few people there with us. I am going to get started. This is our tropical sunset painting. We are going to start with the background. So I always like to use a decent sized brush for my background, just because it makes it curve a little bit better. So you always get your brush wet to start off with. Have a paper towel, just kind of dab off the excess water. We are going to take a little bit of white, make a little puddle here in the middle, and then we're going to add a little bit of the magenta. And it's going to make a bright pink. If you want a little bit darker, just add a little bit more of the magenta to it. So I've got a medium bright pink. And so we're going to start, and we're just going to paint horizontally across the top of the canvas. And in my studio, I always tell people to be sure to paint the edges of their canvas. It just kind of gives it a more finished look. And that way you can hang it on the wall. You don't have to worry about putting it in a picture frame. Sometimes these wrapped canvases can be a little bit hard to find the right frame for. So this just makes it a lot easier. All right, so we have a nice bright pink for the top of our sunset. The key to doing these gradients is to work with the paint while it's wet, because that just helps them blend a little bit better. If your paint doesn't blend like you want it to, just add a little bit more water to it. So, and one thing I forgot to do, getting started here, sorry about that, y'all. I'm going to take my chalk, and if you don't have chalk, it's fine. You can use a pencil. Doesn't really matter. I just wouldn't use a pen or anything. But we're going to draw us a horizon line across the bottom. This is where our water is going to meet the sky. So we're just going to draw a horizontal line across there. That's where I know that I'm going to stop my sky at. All right, so I'm not rinsing my brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit of the vermilion or the orange. I'm going to blend it with a little bit of my white. I'm just using the same puddle where I had my pink before, because that's just going to help them blend all that much better. So I'm going to put me a nice stripe of that color, and then you're going to go back up into the pink and kind of blend them back and forth. That's why it matters if this paint is wet, because it just kind of helps them blend into a nice sunset. And again, I'm painting my edges. You don't want it to have stripes. You just want it to kind of blend. All right, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a little yellow up and blend it into this orange and pink mixture. And I'm going to add a little bit of water to my brush. And just continue to paint that on across. Oops, again, don't do that. Don't do what I just did. Don't just not look at your palette and stick your brush in the wrong color paint. Paint my edges. Okay, so now as I'm getting closer to the bottom, I'm going to mix just a little bit of yellow and orange together, and not so much of the pink. I want it to be kind of a bright yellow, or a deep yellow, I guess. And we're just going to continue blending. Always kind of back up into the other color that you had just painted, and it just kind of helps blend them back and forth together. Then you end up with a nice sunset and not stripes. Just mix up a little bit more. I didn't quite mix up enough. Getting a little bit more orangey than I want. And you can see right here where I didn't have my paint blended really well onto my plate, which is fine. And with the paint being wet, you just go back and forth over it and you'll just blend it together right there on your canvas. And again, let's paint my edges. All right, so that's pretty much how you paint a sunset sky. I will let, if we have anybody painting out there, I hope we do, I'll let y'all catch up for just a second. I'm gonna see if I can see our little video online as well, see if we have any questions or anything. You can see right here where I didn't have it as well, see if we have any questions. Turn the volume down. So anyway, it's just a really nice sunset. I actually took this painting from a photograph. I should have gotten the photograph out so I could show y'all kind of the picture that that we developed this painting from. So this is kind of a popular one. It's really fairly simple. It's not too stressful for new painters. And it's just kind of a nice, quiet, relaxing theme as well. So anyway, I'm gonna rinse this brush out. So now we're going to paint the water. So the water is more or less a reflection of the sky. There's no blue in this water. The picture that we took this from, the water was just a dark magenta color. So I am going to use just a straight magenta. I'm not mixing it with anything, and I'm going to just paint our water. I'm going to paint right up next to this line that we just painted. And we're going to add some layers to this, so don't worry if your magenta doesn't cover, because it's not a super opaque color, so it's kind of light. But that's okay, because we're going to add to it. It's not going to be just this bright pink color. And if you want to get a nice straight line, I don't know if any of you have like painted your room or whatever at home, but if you do your brush and you put the bristles right up there and then you just drag your brush across like this, you'll get a nice straight clean line, and then you can just go in and fill in below it. You can just do that all the way across. Just kind of load up your brush and then just drag straight across, and you'll get a nice clean line. And again, I need to paint my edge over here. And I want to paint the bottom. I don't know, it's kind of wet, so I'm going to lift it up and paint the bottom. Okay, so now that we kind of have our whole canvas covered, we need this to dry. We're going to go back and we're going to paint the sun, and we're going to add some texture to the water, but this needs to be dry. So I'm going to leave y'all for just a second. I'm going to rinse my brush out. And acrylic paint dries pretty fast. If you're not very patient, you can always hit it with a hair dryer. But it dries pretty fast. As long as you didn't put a lot of like really thick paint, it should dry fairly quickly. So I might fan mine with a paper plate or something just to kind of get it dry a little bit faster. But we're gonna take a quick break. Now's a good time to let your canvas dry. Hopefully you grabbed a snack, something to drink. So take a break, let your canvas dry, and check back with us here in just a minute or two. I wish I could play some music. If anybody knows the rules about Facebook and music, send me a message, because normally in our studio we have music playing, but I know sometimes if you have copyrighted songs, I don't know, Facebook won't like show your post or something. So I definitely didn't want to have that happen tonight. So if anybody knows what the rules are, y'all let me know. Hi Megan. Hi Judy. Thank y'all for joining me tonight. Miss seeing both of y'all. It's a little entertaining outside the studio tonight. Our shop is located across from the courthouse here in Huntsville, and we have protests going on across the street. Can't see them from where I'm at, but you can hear them. I'm not a very patient person when it comes to letting these dry. I'm gonna grab a paper plate real fast. Normally when we're here in the studio, we usually have a pretty good sized group, and so it's kind of like herding cats, and everybody's always at a different place. And so we definitely have hair dryers here in the studio so people can dry their canvas, kind of speed things up just so we can all stay on the same page. So I don't want to bore y'all to tears literally watching paint dry. I hate to touch it. I can still see it's a little bit wet. If we get ahead of anybody, I believe that this will be available to where you can watch it and at your own pace and come back to it. It's a very simple painting. I don't think we're going to leave anybody behind. So, all right, I think it's dry enough. We're going to go ahead and paint our sun. To paint the sun, I'm going to switch to, you don't have to have an angled brush, but I'm just going to switch to like a medium-sized brush to paint the sun. I'm not going to draw, well, usually I draw it. Let's see if it's too wet for the chalk. People that know me, my background is in drafting, and it's kind of weird that drafting and painting don't always mesh because I like the exactness of the drafting. So, okay, so there I kind of have a circle sketched out. Always get your brush wet. I'm going to add a little bit of yellow and white together. to me, the white just kind of makes the paint cover a little better. It makes it a little bit more opaque. I don't put so much white that it really changes the color though. So, but it just makes it cover better. So I'm gonna paint my sun, and I just kind of use my brush and twist it like this. Kind of get a circle. Not necessarily a donut, but we're gonna fill it in. And you can see that you can kind of see the sky that we painted back behind us, so it's going to take more than one coat to cover. So. Hi Robert. Hi Rachel. My hubby's watching too. So we'll go ahead and put another coat on. May take more than one coat, but anyway, so that's our sun. I like to kind of do a little bit of the same yellow kind of out into the clouds a little bit. And with this one, I don't really need to add white to my brush, just because I just kind of want it to look like the sun is kind of maybe reflecting off the clouds. So I'm just using the same brush, and I'm just going to kind of paint some little streaks out to the side. Just want it, and I don't want them to be even. There I go with some nice even lines. My drafting background again. I don't want those to look like that. So I didn't want them to be all even. You just kind of want them to look like the sun's kind of reflecting off the clouds. Again, this is just a yellow. I didn't rinse my brush or anything. Same brush that we used to paint the sun. So. Okay. All right, so we need to do a little bit to our water. Our water right now just looks like a big piece of pink construction paper. So we're going to kind of do the same thing that I just did there with the clouds on the water. I'm going to mix a little bit of the magenta and orange together, just so I have a little bit of a warmer color. It's a little bit different than what the background is. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of paint that color just to kind of fill in over my water. I'm using the same brush that I used to paint the sun, and I'm using it on its nice, on the skinny edge. I'm not painting wide flat like this. I got the brush rotated to where I've got like some skinny strokes. So I just want to kind of replicate what it would look like, you know, for water, you know, the ripples or the sun reflecting off of those on the water. Again, all I did was just kind of mix up some of this vermilion and magenta together. I'm just kind of painting over that bright pink some, you really probably can't even hardly see it, but if you're painting along with me, you'll be able to tell. We're just kind of covering up that bright pink with a little bit warmer shade. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up just a little bit of orange, and I'm going to mix just the tiniest bit of white. You can see I'm just using the same color. I'm picking up just a smidge of white. Just kind of brightening that just a little bit, and I'm just going to kind of paint some little highlights on the water. I might need to brighten it up just a little bit, add a little bit more white. And again, I'm using my brush on its skinny edge, and just painting some little waves. And then what we want to paint is we want to paint this reflection of the sun shining directly on the water. So I'm just going to take a paper towel. I'm not rinsing my brush. I'm just going to kind of wipe off this excess paint. We're going to pick up a little bit of yellow and add a little bit of white to it. I may warm that up with just a little bit of this vermilion. Maybe more yellow. Kind of just looking for not super bright yellow, but definitely a lot brighter than what the water is currently. So we'll see how that looks. And then where the sun is closest to the water is going to be a little bit smaller, and then they're going to get wider as they go away. So kind of a triangular shape. And again, I'm just kind of just making some little ripples with the skinny edge of my brush. Just picking up a little bit more yellow. That was the color I was using wasn't quite what I was looking for. So now we just kind of have the reflection of where the sun is actually shining right over the water. So if yours is not shaped exactly like what you want, because mine's a little wider than what I would really like, I can just always go back with this color that we used a while ago to paint the water. You can always just kind of go back and just kind of drag some of this over and kind of narrow up my little orange reflection a little bit. There, a little bit more happy with that shape. Kind of paint from the side, so hopefully it's right in the middle. Now that my sun maybe has dried a little bit, I'm gonna rinse my brush really good. I just want my sun to be a little bit brighter. So I'm gonna pick up just a little bit more yellow and just kind of paint over my sun. This is just the yellow. I think I may have got out of lines just a little bit right there. You can always kind of strategically place a tree over that to where it'll hide. All right, so at this point, we have the background done and we have the water done, and we have been painting for like maybe 25 minutes. So we're gonna let this dry. Don't leave me. Hopefully you are having a good time. Go grab a glass of wine, get a snack, let your canvas dry, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna paint the trees. Happy Friday, everybody. Cheers. just because I can't sit here in silence. We're gonna do this next Friday as well. I'm trying to remember what our painting is for next Friday. But I'll go ahead and post it here pretty soon. I mean, it's already on the event page, but I'll go ahead and add the supply list to it. So if you want to join us next Friday, we'll be doing another painting. We have one every Friday this month. If we get people interested, then I may go ahead and do it again next month. You know, I mean, just trying to keep interacting with all of our people in town that come paint with us, and hopefully we can maybe meet some new people online doing this, because you definitely don't have to be in Huntsville to paint with us. You can pick up your supplies wherever you can get art supplies where you live. If you enjoyed tonight, please share with your friends that may want to paint. I'd love to paint with a big group of people. It'd be a lot of fun. I think the paintings that we picked out this week hang on one second, are really cute.
Just checking to see if you're okay.
Yeah, we're doing a live paint night.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're doing free paint nights on Fridays. So
really?
yeah, just on Facebook.
Starting at what time?
At 6:30.
And then like 8:30 and then 10:30?
No, we're just doing one painting.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
just one painting on Fridays. We're just doing a free, you know, if you have painting supplies, just get online with us and paint. If not, we're selling the supplies too. So.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
That's neat.
So.
The store looks amazing.
Well, thank you.
Is it catching on pretty good?
It is, but you know, I mean, all this stuff going on is not helping. So.
Yeah.
But it is going to take time, I think, for people to get over not being free to get out.
And when we get college kids back.
Yeah.
I've never wanted them back so bad. Used to have some plans and they would be gone for a few months. Now come on back.
Yeah. Well, I want to get over there and see y'all. I want to come get a facial, so they are doing that.
You know, in 1 month.
Okay.
I think is when we're starting back with that.
Okay. Well, of course, I always wanted to do it right now. This is happening. Good to see you. Bye. Sorry, everybody. That was my neighbor that here in the studio, he owns the Face Maker, the hair salon next door. He was just checking to make sure I was doing okay. Anyway, they're all back open next door, I guess, and so I'm glad to see that things are starting to open back up. So anyway, my husband says, "Where is my wine?" I think we drank it all last night. You'll have to have a beer. And then, hey, Kathleen, good to see you too. Glad that you're on here. And Rachel says that she has beer and no wine. So we are not prejudiced. You can drink whatever you want to drink. So anyway, my canvas appears to be dry. So we hope that y'all's is dry as well. If you're painting with us, we're going to get started with our trees. Again, I'm going to kind of sketch out where I want my trees to be with my chalk. Just because if I don't, they'll go off the page, or I'll have them all bunched up in one place, and they won't be where I want them to be. So if anything, I just kind of draw at least where I want the trunks to be, just so they can kind of end up where I want them to be. So, whoops. Well, that paint is still wet. That's okay though. It didn't mess anything up. Make sure yours is dry. Just kind of fan it with a paper plate, or go hit it with a hair dryer. So anyway, so that's kind of where my trunks are going to go. Yours does not have to look like this. Your trees can be wherever you want them to be, as few or as many. Like I said, I took this from an actual photograph, so I just kind of make it make it match. My husband says no one gave me any supplies to paint with. Sorry, honey. There's paint supplies in the closet in the hallway if you want to paint. But you need to be painting on your mom's platter, not this. So, all right. So here we go. I am going to use probably a similar brush what we just used on the sun and the water to paint our trunks. Just one thing to note about the trunks, they start out narrow and they get thicker as they go down. So just one thing to keep in mind. I have just a small brush, not really anything particular about this brush. Again, you get your paintbrush wet. Now my black paint is super thick, so I always have to kind of add a little bit of water to it to just kind of thin it out a little bit. Otherwise it really drags on the canvas with when I go to use it. So I have to add a little bit of water to my black paint just to thin it up some. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to just follow my little line of chalk. And then I'm going to start at that same point and I'm going to just make it a little bit wider as I go down. And then I'll fill that in. I'm not worried about my lines being perfectly straight. These are palm trees. If anybody's ever seen palm trees, you will know that they are not nice and smooth, that they're usually kind of bumpy. But if that's something that bothers you and you want yours to be nice and smooth, and hopefully you have a steadier hand than I do. All right, so that is one trunk. And then we're gonna paint this one. Again, I'm gonna start where it's skinny and just kind of follow my chalk line down. And then just kind of go to the side of it so it's a little bit wider at the bottom. And then I'm just going to kind of fill it in. I don't really worry about carrying that color underneath the canvas to kind of fill in. Mainly it's just the background that I worry about. I'm going to skip this one just because my sun was still wet. We'll do it last. Kind of makes me want to go on vacation, this painting does. Turn my canvas a little bit sideways. That tree ended up being a little thick at the top, but that's okay. Hopefully everybody's trees are turning out all right. All right, so now I've got to paint this one where my sun was wet, so hopefully I don't just screw this painting up royally here. Kind of lighten my touch here as I went across the sun. Alright, so we'll fill in this last trunk here. I think I've got my black a little thin. It's not one to cover as well right here. There we go. Okay. So Now it looks like I have a bunch of just sticks sticking up. So now we need to paint our branches. For this, you are gonna want like a small detailed brush. I like to use a brush that's small and flat. However, you can also use like a small pointy brush, whichever you want to use. So one thing you want to keep in mind, if you can see our example here, is when you paint the fronds or leaves or branches or whatever, these palm trees, they're all going to start from the center or the very top of your tree, and they're going to kind of arc out. And so the ones that are kind of lower, you'll see that I only paint the little leaves hanging down, but these ones that kind of stick up towards the back, then you'll see that we paint the leaves kind of coming out both sides. That's exactly how that was in the picture. So to me, it's kind of realistic to paint them that way. So just keep in mind that on these branches that hang down, then the leaves don't stick out both sides. So we'll get started painting those. my husband asked if he has all his materials, can I start over? Rob, you can rewatch the video when I get done, or you can catch up. Okay. All right, so I'm going to use this little pointy brush. We'll see how it goes. I don't know if I'm going to like it or not. Again, we have to get the brush wet, and I have to thin out my black paint just a little bit. I want to make sure I have a nice thin point on my brush. All right, so we're going to start with this one down here, and so I'm going to paint just an arc. Just a real light touch. All of them starting right there. And I don't like this brush. We're changing. All right. Yes, much better. That brush was too soft. Kind of looks like an umbrella, I guess. And again, that yellow is still a little wet. All right. So you can do this however you want. I'm going to go ahead and paint all of these little branches, or fronds, or whatever they're called. But you can, if you want to just do them all at one time, you can. You can go ahead and, if you want to go ahead and just paint all the little leaves on here, you can. They're just light strokes coming from those branches coming off, just like that. The same thing with this one here. Just real light strokes. This fringe coming off of those branches. Now this branch here is just kind of hanging down in front, and I can see that from my original painting that I kind of had some on both sides. So I'm going to come back and just kind of add some coming out on the other side. This is kind of the meticulous or therapeutic part, I guess. We have a few paintings like this that are kind of tedious with the brush strokes, where you're not just filling in something. But it's just kind of therapeutic, I guess. So, but you can see, I mean, it doesn't take long. I mean, it just takes a few seconds just to paint those little leaves on there. I always start right there at the base and kind of work my way out. Just try to kind of imagine which way, if you were on the beach, those branches would be and those leaves would be falling. And again, I'm gonna leave that one just because my sun is still a little wet. We'll come back and do that one. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna continue painting these ones up here. You can always sketch these out in advance if you aren't sure where you want your little branches to go, which I'm kind of surprised that I didn't do, just the way I am. But it just kind of looks like an umbrella. And then if you paint these ones up at the top a little bit shorter, it kind of gives the impression of that they're kind of leaning over the back. And this one up here has branches that go off the canvas. Just before I get too carried away, I'll go ahead and paint these leaves on these as well. So hopefully y'all are painting along. Nothing too serious here. Definitely not anything that would keep you from having a glass of wine or a beer or whatever your choice. It's all supposed to be relaxing. I have to remember to add a little bit of water to my black paint over here and there, like I said, because it's really thick and starts making dry brush strokes. I kind of make the little leaves a little bit shorter as they get towards the end of the branch. And again, here's one of the ones that's kind of facing towards us, so it'll have leaves going out both sides. And I pretty much pick up enough paint, like I just did that one with just the paint that I had on my brush. So you don't have to pick up more paint or load your brush with more paint every time. Grab a little bit more water. I'll add a couple coming out the top of this one. And just kind of falling over the edge as they go. All right, so this one, these branches kind of overlap, but I can see the arcs or the branches that I painted, so it's not going to be a problem for me to go ahead and add these leaves. You just paint right over. I guess this is probably the most tedious part of the painting. I mean, for the most part, this painting goes together pretty quick, but I guess painting all these little leaves can be a little time consuming, but compared to the length of time our classes normally are, we're doing great on time, so. Painting a little bit smaller canvas than what we do in the studio too makes a little bit of a difference. One thing you can do as well is, you know how these branches go over every once in a while. You might have a leaf that that doesn't lay exactly the same direction, so you could always come back and just kind of add a little leaf here and there that's kind of showing maybe one that's on the back side that that's laying at a different angle. Hopefully we didn't freeze. Hang on, I'm trying to see if you are still with me. That's one thing I worried about being on our Wi-Fi, is that I might lose y'all. Hopefully y'all are here, so. All right, so I'm going to continue over to this little tree here. This one has kind of got a strange branch. It just kind of points straight up. But like I said, I took this off of a photograph, so that's just kind of how it was, I guess. So I kind of like just painting the leaves as we go. Hopefully painting them with me, you can kind of get the idea how they're supposed to just kind of lay along that that branch and not look like a bottle brush where they're sticking out both sides. Some of them do, but for the most part they don't. The ones that are kind of hanging lower, the leaves just kind of follow along with it. So I'm going to put a few across the top of this one. You can make them a little bit shorter. Kind of looks like they're going away from you when you paint them a little bit shorter. Then I'm going to put some on both sides of this one. And then the same thing for this one that's kind of sticking straight up in the back. All right, 4 down and 2 to go. I got this branch here a little bit thick, but I think it'll be okay. We'll just, a lot of it is kind of covered up by that other tree trunk, so I don't think it's going to be too bad. This one's like really hanging down, so you have to kind of just picture kind of what gravity would be doing to the leaves on that one, and just kind of make sure that kind of paint them in the same direction. You know, they're going to really be just kind of hanging there. Past my branch there. And this is another one I'm going to paint the leaves on both sides. Last one. I think my original painting had a few more, but our canvas is a little bit smaller, so I felt like they were getting a little crowded. All right, last one. We're just whizzing through here. Y'all be sure and go and check out and see what we're painting next Friday. Hopefully it's something that you will enjoy painting. We always feel like for everything, the more the merrier, so please share our post. We'd love to have a lot of people painting with us. If you have any comments or concerns or anything that you think that we could do better, please let me know. This is our first one of these that we're doing. And if you missed the first part of our video, I mentioned that I am working off of a hotspot and not a true Wi-Fi signal. So hopefully the video is playing okay. We're just never up here enough to really warrant paying for internet. So we just pay for our hotspot. So hopefully the connection's been okay. We do classes, we do paint at home experiences as well, and with those we use Zoom, and Zoom I have not had any problems with. So this is our first one that we've done using Facebook Live, and I know I've done a couple other little things doing Facebook, and the video was a little in and out, so hopefully this is working okay for everybody. Okay, so that was pretty easy, and we did it in an hour. So normally our classes that we have in the studio are two. Oh wait, hang on. All right, I just saw. I forgot to go back and paint that one. I gotta have a limb over here with no leaves on it. So normally we allow 2 hours for our classes in the studio, but you know, I mean, it's a little bit different situation here. I have other people that I'm kind of interacting with, and sometimes, you know, that's going to make things take a little bit longer, and I can definitely see kind of where people are and if anybody needs me to slow down so they can catch up. So this is a little bit different situation in that regards. So I always tell people that come to my classes that my superstition is that once you sign your painting, you don't paint on it anymore. Everybody gets to hear my story about my painting that I about had to throw away because I signed it and then started painting on it again, and then totally messed it up, and I thought I was going to have to throw it away, but I was able to salvage it. So I don't even think I signed that one. So anyway, so be sure you sign your painting. But like I said, my superstition is once you sign it, you don't paint on it, so make sure you're finished. I'm going to sign it on this little tree right here, the little brush. Sometimes we cheat in the studio and I let people use Sharpies. But we're going to use a little brush. All right, so anyway, I hope, see if I can make sure I'm in the video here. I hope y'all had fun. This hour went by really fast for me. If you were painting along and you have any tips or tricks or comments or anything that you want to share, please do. If we went too fast or anything like that, please let me know. I know that all right, so we're